Brent Gibson, thank you so much for doing this
Thank you.
today.
I
I'm
appreciate you
excited.
being here.
You are running for sheriff,
I am.
and I didn't know what a sheriff actually does, so I'd like to know.
Okay.
And I'd like to know about your campaign. I'm going to
Sure.
go through your website real quick and just give a little brief introduction. Brent brings over 25 years of dedicated service and leadership experience from the Knox County Sheriff's Office, a Tennessee resident since 1992, former Assistant Chief Deputy, SWAT Commander. You are ready to protect our community with integrity, experience, and fairness. And so I read through this and I was like, seems like a good guy. You played football at UT. You've been in the
Did.
community for a long
I
time.
have.
And what was cool to me is that you've worn a lot of hats. You were a sergeant, a lieutenant, a captain, an assistant chief deputy, director of training, SWAT team commander, graduate of the 260th FBI National Academy, firearms and defensive tactics instructor. That's a lot of stuff.
It is. I mean, there's a lot more there too, but that's the stuff I like.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I did a whole lot when I was there, and I'm proud of all of it, and I'm proud of all the people that I've come in contact with over the years, and those are the people that make up the heartbeat of our communities too. So not only do they work at the sheriff's office, but they're people that love their communities and they want to serve, and they want to serve. They want to have a leader that actually enjoys serving also and enjoys interacting with the community and having that. And building that trust with the community to say, hey, listen, you can come to us with problems, any problems you need, and we're here to listen.
I like that a lot. And I can tell that you're super involved in the community. You're a high school football coach,
I
a
am.
track coach.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
awesome.
Well, I mean, it's all about the kids. At the end of the day,
Yeah.
if we're not investing in our future by investing in the young people, I mean, what are we doing?
Right.
That's our future. That's who's going to be taking care of us. When they become our age,
Mhm.
and I'd like to think that I had a part in building some of that.
Yep. Well, I think this is awesome. I want to ask you the hard questions, I guess. My husband and I were just in New York City he's turning 40. And let me tell you, there are still obviously very nice, rich parts of New York. And then there are some shitholes.
Yeah.
And I'm talking like we were in the Uber and there's like a homeless guy like beating on the back of the Uber and he was obviously like high out of his mind.
Right.
And I asked the Uber driver, like, is this normal? And he was like, yeah,
Yeah.
it
Every day.
is. And
Yeah.
so I think one thing that's worrisome for me, like when I go downtown, when I was growing up here, like there were homeless people, but not that many of them, and
Yeah.
now there seems to be a lot, and we've done a little bit of work with Knox Area Rescue
Sure.
Ministries and, like, Carmen, stuff like that, and so I'm wondering, as a sheriff, how do you actually help? I know you're not a legislator,
Right.
so what can you
Well,
do?
the problem is that we're not going to arrest our way out of this situation,
Right.
and law enforcement's really not the answer, but it's a crucial part of, hey, listen, we need to figure out why these people are here, what these people need, and then get them distributed to the places that are going to help them the best. The problem is that Knoxville's a great place to live and reside, even for the homeless. The homeless come here because they're taken care of, and we have such big-hearted people in Knox County that take care of everybody. My church is involved, and all the churches across East Tennessee are involved. And without sounding like we're enabling people, we're just good people at heart. We're a good Southern community that cares about everybody, and we're God's servants, and we do that to everybody in our community. And what needs to happen is we need to have some facilities, because the majority of these homeless people are suffering from something,
Right.
mental illness, drug abuse, whatever the case may be, and we got to find out what that is. The problem is that they no longer have a place to go. We don't have a mental health institution here in East Tennessee anymore. So we, as the sheriff's office, are designated to actually uh, ship those people to Moccasin Bend or Nashville where they can get treatment. The problem is there's just so many steps to that thing. Our jail is full out at Maloneyville, and it's full. It's been said that it is the largest mental health facility in Tennessee, and I have to agree it is.
So do we need different laws, or do we need more money, or what actually helps the
So
sheriffs to, like, do that job?
So the money is key, in getting a regional, mental health facility, slated, for East Tennessee, and I know they're working on it now, but you're talking about, to get it approved takes a year, and then to get the money approved, it takes another year, and then get the employees improved, and all this time, you gotta build the facility and then actually, find the employees for the facility, so we're talking about a 5-year plan if we started today. So we gotta do something, I don't think going down there and putting everybody in jail is the answer, obviously.
Mhm.
But what we do need is to make people understand that there are rules to our society and that everybody has to follow those rules. And we got to be diplomatic and hold people accountable where we should be holding people accountable.
I like that. Okay, next hot topic, ICE immigration
Sure,
stuff. What do you see
sure.
happening there, and what do you guys actually do
Right.
in conjunction with ICE for the immigration
So
problems?
we are a 287G jail program right now. All right. And what that means is that uh ICE is in our jail, and when we bring somebody in that can't identify themselves as a citizen, they're put over there with those ICE people, and those ICE people decide whether or not they get deported or not. All right. What I don't want to happen is us to be so bad that ICE has to come in here and police our community. So we need to work with ICE, and the next step of this model is the task force model, where it's a 40-hour class. Our officers can take that class online and get trained on how to determine whether or not somebody is here illegally or not. And then that way we don't have to have an actual charge to take them to jail before they can get processed for that immigration status. Not that we're out there looking for people and beating the bushes, but if we run into people, which we already do on a daily basis now, it makes it a little bit easier for us and it makes it more efficient. And that way we're not spending so much time waiting on ICE and trying to let ICE make a decision. We can make those decisions, get it taken care of, and move on about our job for the citizens of Knox County.
I feel like, and this is just me as an outsider
Mhm.
not knowing anything, that Knoxville is already doing a pretty good job with it. Like, you heard that one news story out in, Hardin Valley or whatever,
Yeah.
but I feel like that was just, like, politically motivated and driven. Is that your opinion?
And I think so. I think, Knox County as a whole, we do a great job as a community of policing our own community. And, obviously we want to work with ICE and we want to have a great relationship with them, but we don't want them coming in here and actually, serving big, huge warrants and doing that things without at least getting with us first. And that way we have a major part in policing our community, and not having the federal government come in and actually just taking over and doing those things like they do in big cities that are sanctuary cities and things like that. So no, I don't anticipate us having problems with that at all.
Okay. Another thing you have on your website is strengthen relationships with other agencies. So is that what you're talking about, like with
Yes.
ICE and stuff
Right.
like that? Okay.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's important to get on with all your federal agencies. I went to the FBI National Academy and met some great people there, not only from other federal agencies, but also from local agencies here in Tennessee and statewide and nationwide here in the United States. You were talking about New York. I knew one of the lieutenants up at NYPD, and he came down here to see a ball game, and he loved the place. Now he's the chief over at UTP PD, and him and his wife moved here. Both worked in at the NYPD, and now they're here forever. They went for their forever home, and they enjoy it just like we do. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Next question. And this is to me as a mom important.
Mm.
How do you think the sheriff's office can actually help with school safety? I know that you guys are not legislators. And
Right.
so, what do you guys see the sheriff's office actually being able to do?
So we're already doing a lot of that. All
Mhm.
right. So Governor Bill Lee has actually already funded every police officer in every school. So we got 43 actual schools in the county portion of Knox County. And we don't have them all full yet. And we were probably only like at 22, 23 officers when I left the department. Now I know they got a lot more, and I think they're only about 10 short of that 43 now. But they do give us their entire salary plus benefits and everything else. So that's actually they're paying for a whole employee. So if we can get uh, the county commission to actually approve those extra spots to give us back those 43 spots that the state's paying for, and then we can hire 43 more officers. So now we can fill our force on patrol and making sure we have more officers on the street, and that's what it's all about at the end of the day is having more cops in police cars driving around in your neighborhoods to keep everybody safe. You know, the community policing thing's a real thing. If you see a bunch of cops out there, you're not gonna,
Right.
break the law.
Right.
So that's what exactly what we need to do. So the school and filling those spots is a big priority for me. And then Knox County School Security actually has a armed guard in every school anyway, and we work really closely with them, do a lot of their training, and they train with us in case of you know, an unfortunate incident does happen in one of the schools. And we have, obviously patrol, and then everybody else that's the support staff, is always available too. So, protecting our schools and our children's a big part. Listen, I raised both of my kids here in Knox County, and we've had a good time with all the schools and all the events we've had, and fortunately not had that many incidences in Knox County.
I agree with that. Recently I interviewed Angie Lawless. She's running 59th district, so that would be in Nashville.
Right.
Yeah, for state house.
Yeah.
And one of the things that she's talking about is school safety. And she's a Democrat, so she's going to push for more gun control and
Sure.
stuff like that. What do you actually think? And I know you're not. That's a
Yeah.
hot.
Yeah.
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 What's your opinion as a policeman? You know.
Listen, so there's got to be obviously a lot of training. I mean, we carry guns in Tennessee. If you're not a felon, you can carry a gun in Tennessee.
Right.
And I love that about
Me
Tennessee.
too.
I'm a huge constitutional guy. I mean,
Mhm.
and the Second Amendment, it means a lot to me.
Right.
The First Amendment means a lot, and the Fourth Amendment means a lot too. I mean, so you got to understand that if we're going to allow people to carry guns in school, they have to be well trained. I mean, our guys are obviously police officers, and I'd like to consider us some of the most well trained people out there, but they are going to have to at least figure out, hey, the pros and the cons of the situation. I'm not for guns in school, but who's going to carry those guns, and how responsible are those people that are carrying those guns? Because you leave a gun on a desk accidentally, now a child's got access to a weapon, and not that it couldn't happen with a police officer or one of the security guards in schools, but if you leave people defenseless, what are they supposed to do? The run hide fight's great, but it only goes so far.
Mhm.
So.
Okay. I was it was funny, I was walking into K-Brew this morning to get a coffee, and this guy had a gun, like, on his waist, like, showing,
Sure.
not underneath his shirt, and I was
Yeah.
like, "Hey, man, I like your gun, we need more of that." He smiled, and, he said, "I agree, because it keeps people honest," I
Well, it
said.
does, yeah.
Yeah, but the school thing is just so, like, touchy
It's
for
tough,
people.
yeah.
So to get those extra 43 officers, what has to happen?
So, the state's already approved, we already get the
Okay.
money. So, what I want to do is replace, because we're having to take from our current staff on patrol and move them to the schools.
Okay.
So, what we need is those 43 officers back for our budget, because we can't replace them until we get more. So we're already full, as a department. But since we had to put 43 of those in schools and we're getting paid for it by the state, we don't have those other positions aren't yet granted to hire people. If that makes sense to you.
Gotcha.
So all we need is the blessing, and because what they're worried about, I'm sure, is, hey, once we say, yeah, we're going to give you 43 more spots, and then the state something happens to the funding from the state for those 43 officers in the school.
Okay, so
You know
it's
what I'm
a
saying?
state funding
Yeah,
issue.
well, and I don't think it's an issue as far as, hey, if you can guarantee us that, and we can maybe write up some paperwork saying, hey, if they ever stop doing that, uh, then we would trade those 43 spots back in, because basically what it's doing now is the state's giving us 43 more officers to do the schools, but now we have 43 because we don't have to take it from those 43 people from our staff
Okay.
at it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's not that hard to do. I mean, it's just, it takes approval, and then, you don't want to, because 43, I mean, it's $3.2 million a year
Uh-huh.
is how much it's going to cost. And, we can't come up with $3.2 million in our already shallow budget. So,
Got it. In your opinion, are Knoxville police officers, like, medium on training, well trained, undertrained? And the reason I ask that is just because I feel like during 2020, when all the BLM and the Floyd stuff
Right,
was
right.
going on, the people's trust in policemen went down.
Yeah.
But in Tennessee, I don't feel like it did compared to the rest of the country. So I'm like, are we really that much better here, or am I not
Well,
reading
there's
this?
I hate to say this, but it's the absolute truth. We just got better people here,
Okay.
and people love their communities more here than they. And I can't say that for absolute truth, but I live here, and there's a reason I live here. Uh, are we well trained? Absolutely, we're well trained, and we get better trained every year.
Mhm.
And the state standards go up every year. Our standards at the department go up every year, and I'm a big proponent of training. I was over our training division for a long time, and trained for even longer than that. Ever since I've been out on the street, that's what I do. As far as firearms and defensive tactics and de-escalation, things like that. That's a mandatory stuff. I mean, you got to know how to do, what to do, and then when to do it,
Mhm.
and then you got to have training at that. So your training never stops. So once you start that training, there's always, hey, we got to get better at dealing with this kind of situation and this kind of situation. And what if this happens? And then, like you said before, you know, I remember when I first got here, we only had a handful of homeless people, or mentally ill people that were, uh, homeless.
Mhm.
And, we knew them all, you
Yeah.
know, and I knew, when I was on campus, we only had 3 or 4 people that were around, and now it's just there's so many, and it's just, we gotta learn how to deal with that. We gotta be better trained at the mental health part of our jobs.
Where is that coming from? Like,
The training?
yeah.
So, the state sets the standards, and then you're allowed to so we run our own academy, we're allowed to put whatever we think's important in there. It's all gotta be state approved before we put it in there and teach it to these, officers. So, we can't just add something that we wanna add. It's gotta be approved by our post,
Okay.
and post pretty much sets the training for everybody.
What is post?
So uh, so it stands for Peace Officer State Training, and they assess what we need as far as training goes to get our certification to be a police officer.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does. Do you know who Sean Ryan is?
Mhm.
Okay, so he has this girl who's been on his show multiple times. Her name is Sarah Adams. I think she was like an analyst for the CIA. She held all these different government
Yes, yeah,
jobs.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So she has talked a lot about like sleeper cells.
Right.
And she says that so many state police departments have not had training on how to deal with like if a terrorist event
Sure.
happens in the community.
Right.
Is that something that Knoxville is trained for?
Yeah, so we have our own division of Homeland Security in our department.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, listen, it's not rampant here,
Mhm.
and I would like to think that it's non-existent somewhat, but I know it is,
Mhm.
and you never can tell. So, uh, the federal government does a great job of tracking all these people and making sure we're, up to date on what's going on.
Mhm.
So we work very closely, and that's part of my, working close with other agencies. How much of that information is actually getting passed down to the people that need to know it,
Mhm.
because we're the guys with the feet on the ground,
Right.
answering calls every day, doing the things that we're supposed to be doing.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, I was just listening to her and it was interesting because part of me is like goes to fear immediately, and then the other
right.
part is like, well, how many things have we
I remember
actually
when she
seen like this
first came on the
happen?
show like 2 years ago. I
Yeah.
was driving through Kentucky for some reason, and, me and my wife were listening to it, and, I think we were going to Lexington, and I was like, "Man, is that the statistics that she said was,
I know.
49,000 sleepers or people in these sleeper cells?" And I'm like, "Man, that seems like a whole lot of people." But, when you ration that out, and is it really true?
Right.
And what cities are they in?
Right.
Because, that would be a big group of our population here in Knox County that would be seen, if it was that many people. But, if they're sleeper cells, I guess,
You don't
you
know.
don't know. So,
I guess where my concern was is I was just like, a ton of people came over the border
right.
under Biden,
Sure.
and so if her and she was tracking a lot of these people. So I believe that she's credible. But then with Knoxville, I'm like, we have Oak Ridge. And then I feel like if people are going to do something like that, like we always go to UT football games, like where do you have 100,000 people at
Yeah.
one time,
When you got the second biggest stadium in the United States right here, and it's full 8 times a year,
I know.
unless we have another concert or something like that. And, that's a lot of people. That's crazy to think that this something could happen there. And but listen, you've been to a football game and you
Mhm.
know how many cops are around there
Oh,
and
there's
how hard it
tons.
is
Yeah.
to get in, and they're not letting you in with any kind of backpack. We got, you know, hundreds of dogs that swept that stadium, and all those guys do. I mentioned Sean Patterson, the chief of police over at UT, being a real good friend of mine, and he was in emergency services at NYPD, and talking about super well trained. That guy knows what he's doing, and he's been around it, and he's the guy that did all the ball drops and all that stuff at NYPD. So he knows what he's doing, and he brought an extra level of tactical experience to UT just by them hiring him.
Mhm.
So he along with his team lead that whole thing, and I got the utmost confidence in them, and we support them like no other. They do a great job, and we got hundreds of employees that work over there on Saturdays on game day. So
Cool.
yeah, yeah,
Okay. So the next thing I wanted to talk about was I did mortgages for years and I did loans for all the people from New York and Chicago and California moving to Tennessee. And now we all sit in the traffic every day. So we know that there are that many more people here.
oh yeah,
One of the things on your website was that you wanted to increase community engagement, have cops out in the community, which
yeah,
I think is like one of the most important
sure.
things because if you don't want people to fear policemen, they have to like know that they're on their
Well,
side
you
and
got to
there
be
to protect
interactive
them.
with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, have we hired enough policemen to cover the amount of people that have moved here to where they could actually have time to go talk to someone in a
Right.
neighborhood, or
Well,
are they
and that's
always just responding to
Yeah, that's
calls?
so that's the huge issue right now is they stay so busy because of all of the people that moved here. And like I said before, in 1999 when I was hired, we had 1,200 employees. Now we just have just over 1,000. So where did that extra 150 employees go? And why don't we have more officers? And we've had to restructure things so we could give officers raises, and unfortunately that means dissolving some of those positions so we can put that money back into giving pay raises to officers. And yes, we do need more officers, but we can do some restructuring in our department to figure out, hey, let's put more people on the streets. It doesn't matter, if you're a cop, you're a cop. You go out there and you're serving the public, and the more people you put on the streets, the better off everybody's going to be, because
Mhm.
now we're building relationships. You get to talk to those officers, you get to know them by name. We run people in the same zones for a reason, so they can get to know the customers.
Mhm.
So we know where the bad parts of town is, and those good people that we run into, they're pushing us towards, hey, we got problems with this, or this is happening over here. And building those relationships means that you have a stronger community based policing effort. And now you got officers going to HOA meetings and things like that, and showing up at community events, and they're just another part of society.
Mhm.
And people trust us, and people like to hang out with us, and we're just normal people, and we normalize the actual patrol officers in Knox County. Now,
Mhm.
I think that's a better relationship than, hey, that's the guy that's going to put you in jail, or that's the
Right.
guy that's going to write you a ticket.
Right.
That's not what we want to be known as. We want to be, the good part of our job is helping people.
Right.
That's it. That's the only reason I do my job. That's
Yeah.
the only reason I love to be the police, is because we actually get to help people.
Yep. My, this is a female driver moment in my life. My husband got me a new car. I run out of gas on the interstate
Goodness.
during rush hour
Yeah.
traffic, and
Yeah.
it's like 90 degrees outside. So it's
Sure.
me and my kids like just pulled over on the
Oh,
shoulder,
goodness.
and this nice police officer pulls up, and she's like, "Hey, like, what are you doing?"
Right.
I was like,
Why are you here?
I'm out of gas," and she was like, "Oh, geez."
Mm.
So she stayed until my husband and our buddy got
Okay.
there to like
Yeah.
fill up the gas and stuff. And she just wanted to make sure like we weren't going to get hit because
Sure.
we were
Absolutely.
right
Just
there in the
keep
middle
people
of
off of
traffic.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was like the nicest thing because my kids have always been like, oh, cops just take bad guys to jail, you
Right.
know? And so
Yeah.
I'm like, they don't just do that.
No. So yeah, TV kind of ingrained some of that uh bad things that cops have to deal with. I mean,
Mhm.
because that's the exciting stuff,
Right.
when we get in shootouts, which doesn't happen a lot, or
Uh,
when we have to, chase somebody down and tackle them and put handcuffs on them. I mean, that's all the part of the job also,
Yep.
but that's not the fun part of the job. The
Right.
fun part of the job is when you can actually, you know, go you stop with a stranded motorist and figure something out
Yeah.
that gets them off the side of the road so it takes them home to their family safely.
Yeah.
Instead of maybe somebody swerving over and hitting because they're just following taillights because they may have been too drowsy or whatever while they're driving, and protecting those people. And then getting that thank you card or seeing them in Walmart the next day or 3 weeks later and them saying thank you and you're with your family. And now you've created a moment that now people do recognize my dad
Mhm.
and he does do good stuff in the
Right.
community. So, that's all part of it. And, that's what I want to get back to. Uh, I did this job at the beginning of my career for not a lot of money.
Mhm.
But I'd venture to say if they just gave me room and board, I would have done it for free,
Mhm.
because it is that much fun. And I had a blast my whole career,
Mhm.
doing it, or I wouldn't want to be doing this now. And I want those guys that work there, those men and women that are cops right now, to have the same experience as I had.
Yeah.
And I know they do, but I want to make it a great place to work and a great place to, be on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. I think what's hard, I feel for you guys so much because, like, cops don't get paid hardly anything. It's a thankless job, kind of like firemen, nurses,
Sure.
teachers, so many things. But I want, like, little boys and girls to, like, see it as a noble, honorable profession. And, like, my son, he wanted the police officer and he wears the fireman get up
Sure.
for
Yeah.
Halloween and
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
that. Like, I wish there would be some way, and the money is probably not there, but, like, to go back into schools and have policemen, like, reading to the kids and stuff, like, to
Yeah.
make it cool again, you
Yeah,
know?
for sure. I mean, and we got the opportunity to do that now, with all the officers that we're putting in schools now.
Mhm.
I'm gonna encourage those guys and those men and women that wear the uniform when they're in school to make those people that are there, those children that are there, the most comfortable they can be
Right.
and introduce themselves. That way, when they come out of high school and they start their own, they don't have an apprehension about what we're about.
Right.
They know a cop, and so it's not in Knoxville. It's not very uncommon for people to come up to me and say, "Hey, did you know my SRO? He's such and such." Yeah, I knew him. He's a great guy, and us have a conversation. And now that kid knows two cops that
Right.
he really trusts and likes, and it just goes from there. It's just like any other part of the community. But we need to be an active part of that community
Mhm.
and really encourage those relationships to grow.
Yeah, I agree. I don't love what social media has done with the ICE stuff, like the
Sure.
Kristi Noem stuff or whatever,
Yeah.
but I do think that a lot of those videos that they made, like, showing, like, we're badasses and we're
Right.
serious and stuff
Yeah.
was kind of cool, and it actually did, in the beginning before it turned the wrong way, a
Right.
lot to combat the bad stuff that's happening on social media around law enforcement. Because
Mhm.
for so long, all we saw was, like, these body cam videos of, like, stuff going horribly wrong with
Right.
policemen, and that's just so small, but because we're seeing that on social media, we think it's happening all the time, and
Yeah.
so I feel like, policemen need a good PR campaign.
Well, I mean, a policeman can answer 1,000 calls and only one of them goes sideways.
Right,
That's not a high percentage of,
right.
call, to bad thing at ratio.
Yeah,
And, you know, we train and do all that stuff that we do, the 40 hours of in service and all the extra training and all the academy stuff that we've done in our past. And we do it for that one moment that may or may not even happen.
mhm.
And if we can, come out on top or be successful, and at the end of the day, nobody really wins in a deadly force
No.
situation. So, and nobody knows that better than the police. I mean,
Mhm.
we've been around it far too often, and you know, half of the time we spend, uh, looking back at calls are the worst calls that are a lot. We're answering calls that, it's the worst day of your life if you have
Right.
to call us. And, we have to have sympathy, but at the same time, we're wanting to go home to our family also.
Mhm.
And, it's easy to judge somebody on a split second decision when you have all the time in the world to judge them. But we have split seconds to either live or die.
Mhm.
And, I don't think that that's all that is that makes up a cop and a good cop, because he makes the right decision and gets lucky every now and again. Uh, cops are people,
Mhm.
and I'm not saying every cop's a good guy, but the guys I hang around with and the guys that I associate with, man, they're great people, and they got great families that, that love them, that support them, and you have to have that love and support to do your job and to do it good or even great. You
Mhm.
gotta have a lot of support at home, and you gotta have a lot of support at work. Your boss has to be able to support you. Uh, "Hey, we're gonna do this because it's best for our employees,"
Mhm.
and that's why we're doing things, and, we need to get back to that. We need to put our employees first and make sure they need everything they have to do their job properly
Mhm.
and safely.
I agree. Okay, I just want to say for you, I've never ever in my life paid attention to like a sheriff's campaign. I don't know why. Maybe
It's
it's just because I'm like
me
now in
either.
my mid 30s and I have kids, I'm paying attention. But I love your signs because they
Ugh,
have your picture on them.
sure.
And I love your website because it shows like a family and part of your life.
Yeah.
And I even laughed about one of your social media reels is like something I like to do is
Oh
smoke
my
meat.
goodness. So listen, obviously, I mean, I'm a 300-pound guy, a 6'6", I played offensive line.
Yeah.
So I love food. I love to eat. I love donuts. I love coffee. I love a lot of things that I probably shouldn't love,
Uh-huh.
but it's part of me. It's part of who I am, and it's part of Knoxville. I mean, we
Yeah.
we have such a great tradition of Southern food and cooking, and my mom was a huge cook, and Sunday after church dinners and Saturday breakfasts were such a big part of my life
Mhm.
and such a big part of my family's life too. And, everybody meets around the meal.
Mhm.
And, so I hate to say I revolve around food, but man, I love food.
I do
I mean,
too.
it's great.
I do too. Well, anyways, I like what you're doing with your campaign,
Thank you.
and then I just reached out to you on social media. My husband said, "Oh, that's all AI. You're never gonna get a response," but your daughter responded,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I was like, "Oh, that's cool that she's
Yeah.
involved in your campaign."
Right.
So if people want to, like, give to you also, I'm just gonna say this on here, I don't know if you care or not. A campaign's really expensive to run. Like, I had
Yeah.
no idea how much it
Yeah.
is. So if people wanna give to you, where do they give to you? How do they
Like
find you?
BrentGibson.com, you can give on my website, electronically, don't pay the fees and stuff that they ask for. Make sure that's set to 0. I got my address on there. Uh, you know, the hardest thing about this whole thing is actually asking people for their hard-earned money,
Yeah.
and it's terrible. I don't like it. We set up a budget right at the beginning. I set out a goal to make that budget so I didn't have to overdo it, and we kept our budget pretty slim to where it's just paying for what we think the necessities are. So I may not be doing all the advertising and things that some of the other people are doing, but I'm trying to, I set a game plan and we're trying to stick to it
Mhm.
as much as possible. And it's just like, I use what I got. I mean, my daughters, listen, I got one that's graduating at UT in chemical engineering. The
Okay.
other one's in nursing school at Carson Newman. And they're some of the brightest people I know. And my wife has her PhD and she still answers police calls. I mean,
Mhm.
she's a sergeant at Sevierville Police Department and loves her job, loves the people she works with and for. And, she serves that community. She served our community for 22 years here in Knox County as a homicide detective in major crimes and did a fantastic job. And, worked her way through school while working at the sheriff's office. And, she wanted to be a doctor and she set her goal there and that's where she got to. And so I have a whole family full of overachievers. I never would have knew it, but my kids are fantastic and they help me in any aspect. I mean, my oldest daughter, you talk to my youngest daughter,
Okay.
and she's the social one,
Mhm.
and she's great, and she helps me answer because there's just so much stuff going on. I don't
Mhm.
have time, and I don't really have the funds to hire people to do that. So it's a family gig, and she loves it, and she loves her dad, and she loves supporting me, and my wife's the same way. She's super fantastic, but she's teaching school and working a full-time job, so she doesn't get to come with me a whole lot, and I'd love to have her at every event I went to and do all that stuff, but she's got her own life, and she's got her own goals, and we real similar. We met in law enforcement, and law enforcement's a huge part of our life, so, I come from a family of service. My dad was in the military, my brother's in the military. He actually got out of the military and came and worked at the sheriff's office for a little while,
Cool.
flew helicopters here, flies for the military, flew drones for the military, so it's in my blood. I mean, it is what I do, and just working at the high school and coaching those kids and being a small part of their lives is very, very rewarding for me. And, and I think if you knew me, you knew what, that's the most joy I get out of it is
Mhm.
helping people and doing the right thing and doing the right thing even when nobody's looking.
Mhm.
That's what I'm about.
That's cool. Well, I love that your picture is on your signs because you put, like, a face with a name. Also, I love that you're huge because, like, it's
Yeah,
kinda like we were talking about, like, having police officers, you're like, "Oh, I might
right.
not act up." I'm like,
Yeah.
"I would not mess with that guy."
So it has kept me out of a lot of
I
physical
bet.
altercations and,
I bet.
having the command voice and, the command presence.
Yeah.
It does help police officers, but, my wife's not big, so she's a small lady, but, she's got a command voice and she's got command presence also. So,
Uh-huh.
I love it. I didn't wanna put my picture on the sign because I'm not the most handsome guy out there, and I thought, well, you gotta be this crazy handsome before you put your picture on a billboard or whatever. But I think putting my face with a name
It's important.
it's I think it's important. And a lot of people know me here, but it's not. I'm not a superstar. I wasn't the greatest football player,
Mhm.
but I did play for the University of Tennessee and had a great time. And that's where I built my values and character.
Mhm.
So
Well, I appreciate that you put it there because then I reached out to you, but, I think that in our society, people, like, hate on masculinity a lot until they need it.
right,
And, like, when you're in a bad situation, you call a policeman, it's good to have somebody who can take care of things if
yeah,
they need to, and so I like
yeah.
the pictures on there, I think that's good. I wanted to read one thing that I really liked on your thing. You said under the tackle homelessness, you
Yes,
said, "Address the growing homelessness crisis in Knoxville with a father's strength, firm accountability, and Christian conservative compassion." And I think
yeah,
that should apply to, like, everything that policemen do.
100%. Yeah,
Father strength, like, that's what I'm
100%.
talking
Yeah,
about, like,
yeah.
compassion and accountability.
Well, I mean, the greatest thing I've ever done is be a father to my 2 girls. I
Uh-huh.
mean, and then, not only to them, and they would say that I'm a father to all those kids that play for me, and some of them are adults now. I mean, they've moved on, and, I got a couple of those guys that played offensive line for me. They work in the jail, and they do things that, I'm super proud of them for
Mhm.
doing. And they may not make the most money or be the most successful people in the world, but man, they're being a productive part of society,
Yeah,
and that makes me so proud to do. Maybe I had just a little bit to do with their success in life. And, I take pride in that. I really do.
that's awesome. That's what you want in a leader.
100%.
Well, thank you for your service to our community. I have always felt safe here. I have never feared
Good.
policemen. I don't want my kids to fear them. I think you guys are doing a fantastic job, and
Thank
I
you.
hope that you get elected and can continue that in our community.
Thank you so much. It's so good to be here, and it's a breath of fresh air to see other like-minded citizens in Knox County. Thank you for what
Cool.
you do.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Brent.
it.